Good afternoon. Pesach. This is the Devar Torah on Parshat Acharei, which will be following the day after Pesach in Eretz Israel. In Chutz La'aretz, in places outside of Israel, this parsha will be read next week because there'll be a special parsha for the 8th day of Pesach. Now, this parsha begins very dramatically with the V'diber Adonai el Moshe achrei mos shnei banim Aaron. Hashem spoke to Moshe after the death of Aaron's two sons while they approached before Hashem and they died. Now, it then goes on to instruct, first of all, that Aaron should not go into the Holy of Holies until they except on Yom Kippur, and only after he makes the cloud of smoke from the incense, so that he will not be able to see the cloud of Hashem. And according to some opinions, he was only supposed to do it one day a year on Yom Kippur. The other time when he was making a korbanot, his offering korbanot. However, either way, it was very limited activity, because Aaron's sons had gone beyond that and had gotten too close to Hashem. They got carried away by their enthusiasm, even though they had great love for Hashem and dedication. They broke boundaries in any emotions we have, including love of Hashem or of a fellow human, should be done in a moderate way with certain respected boundaries. The parsha then goes on to discuss the entire Yom Kippur service, and in the middle of it, which is obviously the most sacred day of the year, the parsha then goes on to talk about Aaron taking a lot of two goats. One goat will go to be sacrificed, and the other, named Azazel, will be taken to the desert, the Midbar, after Aaron has to confess all the sins of Erod of the Jewish people for that year. Now, the name Azazel has a couple of different explanations, one of which is that Azazel comes from a event that occurred in Parshas Noach. At the end, near the end of that parsha, the human race become extremely decadent. It was on the verge of having to be destroyed in flood, Marvel, Luge. However, before that happened, they had to, two angels made fun, who named Azza and Zel, and they made fun of the human race and said to God, see these weak humans, they can't do anything right, they're all sinning. God said to them, you go down to earth. You will not be able to withstand the temptations any more than humans. And they were sent down, and God was right, because what happened next was the angels started sinning worse than even the human race, which, looking at the level of immorality and depravity at the time just before the flood is astounding in itself. However, they did, and they contributed to the more rapid decline of the human race. And therefore, in remembrance of that, that is why they were given the name. Another explanation is that Azazel, the goat, is referring to the creatures that are hairy. Who is that a reminder of? That a reminder of Esav, the chief protagonist of the Jewish people throughout history, Yaakov's brother. And not only did it do that, why the hairy one, furry one? Because Esav was covered with hair. And on a bit of a deeper level, who is the angel of Yaakov? Of Esav, is the Yetzer Hara, the tempter. And Satan, in his capacity in Yom Kippur, the accuser, the prosecuting angel against the Jewish people. So he's given a gift. Now, it doesn't mean we're making an offer, God forbid, at that time to Satan, but it says he will be distracted, just like on Rosh Hashanah is distracted by the shofar blowing. The Satan will be distracted on Yom Kippur by this gift. And because he will be distracted by this gift, he won't be able to be the accuser of the Jewish people, or Hashem that they wants to purify and render faultless. And that is the other name for it. After the Yom Kippur service description is complete, the Parsha then goes on to describe the events, or actually rules, of when, now that there is a Mishkan sanctuary, it also applies later days when there was a temple, sacrifices had to be made by the Kohanim in front of Hashem's presence, nowhere else, to prevent people worshiping the various types of idols, avodah zarah, and other evil forces. So therefore, that commandment was made. The Parsha then goes on to a discussion of the fact that we cannot take on the practices of either the Mitzrayim, the Egyptians, or the Canaanites, the land we were going to be entering. And it specifically talks about all the sexual relationships that are banned, because we're not supposed to take on the ways and purify the land, because the land of Israel cannot handle impurities, and the people would be just like the 7 Canaanite nations were going to be ejected. So too the Jewish people would be ejected, and in fact that was one of the primary causes of our ejection in the at the end of the First Temple era. I would like to focus now on the beginning of the Parsha when we're talking about Aaron's sons. Now, Aaron's sons, and there's different interpretation of this, but Aaron's sons, Nadav and Abihu, their bodies died, but they didn't die spiritually, because their where they were acting improperly was getting too close to Hashem in too familiar a way. But if anything, they were carried away with enthusiasm, possibly coupled with having drunk alcoholic beverages, because in Parsha Shmini, right after Nadav and Abihu die, they Aaron and his sons, commanded by Moshe from Hashem, that they should not have strong beverages when they're administering to God and serving God in the even Mishkan of the temple. Interestingly enough, in Eretz Israel, where the Kohanim bless in morning prayers, the rule is that's before they eat or drink, so that there can't be any possibility of alcoholic beverages. The only day of the year that they are allowed to pray, plus afterwards, was on Yom Kippur, because it's a whole night and day of fasting. Now, what happened to exactly happened to Nadav and Abihu? Now, what I'm going to say sounds quite amazing. I mean, surprising that the people Nadav and Abihu, they were in fact reincarnated. In Hebrew, we call it Gilgul, coming back from the soul. Now, whose body did they come back into? And the answer is going to be Pinchas is Pinchas. Now, Pinchas was the grandson of Aaron HaKohen, and he was going to play a very large part later on. At this time in the story, he was not yet a Kohen. I'll discuss that in more detail when we get to Parshas Pinchas and Parshas Balak before that. And now, where did they reincarnate into? They both reincarnated into the body of Pinchas, and it was a special type of entry, which I'll discuss in a minute. And how do we know that? That there was in fact a reincarnation? Because it says Eliezer ben Aaron lakach lo manos, took from the daughters of Putiel, lo Lisha was a daughter, as a wife, and Teled lo et Pinchas, and she gave birth to Pinchas, and El Rashi Avot HaLevia Mishpachtem, and that they and Pinchas, and then it says these are the heads of the fathers of the Levium according to their families. Now, very interesting, since the only one that's mentioned is Pinchas, it should have said Rosh of Levium, not Roshi, not in the plural. And that's to tell us that Pinchas, besides his own neshama, had two other neshamas with him, those of Nadav and Abihu. Now, normally when there is a Gilgul, when there is a reincarnation, it's usually one soul to one body. We see that in case of Yibum, where a man dies childless, he's married but dies childless. He then there is a concept of him then marrying his sister-in-law, and it's understood that the deceased brother's the Shema soul will be there with that baby, as well as the baby's own neshama. However, in this case here, there's two neshamas, Nadav and Abihu, both joining with Pinchas. Now, why could they do it? Because since neither one of them was married at the time they died, it was considered as if they were half a person. Therefore, between them, they came to be one person. It's understood in the deeper teachings, the Arizal, that sometimes more than one soul can keep company with in a body with somebody whose soul was there from birth. And a further proof that this was in fact the case is we see in Parshas Balak and Sefer Bamidbar, Hinei ish min b'nei Israel. Excuse me, next pasuk. And Yira, it says, in Yira Pinchas, Ben Elazar, Ben Aaron Kohen, Yikam Matok, Adis, Yikak, Ramo, Yedouin, and Pinchas, the son of Elazar, the son of Aaron, Kohen, took within his hand Adis, and he took the spear. This is because, and I'll get into more detail on that when we get to Parshat Balak. But in any event, it says Pinchas ben Elazar ben Aaron. Now, why do we have to say that? Because when we talk about his father, Elazar, it never says ben Aaron. Yet here, every time we see it talks to Pinchas, it's also in Sefer Shofti. We see it talking about Pinchas ben Elazar ben Aaron. And the reason is, this is again another proof that two of Aaron's sons were in fact spiritually brought back together with the Neshama Pinchas himself. Now, this was a special type of reincarnation. This is a reincarnation known as an Ibor. In this case, since we're talking Iborim. Now, what are Iborim? Iborim are, an Ibor is where a person has we all have a certain spiritual purpose to achieve. He is given the assistance of another pure neshama to help him fulfill his spiritual purpose and physical purpose in this world that Hashem had designed him to achieve. And in this case, they were two Iborim, both Nadav and Abihu. And as I will discuss when we get to Parshas Pinchas, and before that Parshas Balak, they made an incredible impact on the Jewish people by being there with Pinchas. And as we are about to head into the final day of Pesach, I wish all of you a Pesach Sameach. And I also wish all of you, since this is on the Parsha, good Shabbos and Shabbat, good Shabbos and Shabbat Shalom.